So in this video, I'm going to be talking about all the lies and sketchy things concerning Leaving Neverland to hopefully shed some light on why this documentary cannot be trusted. If you enjoy the video, please give me a like and subscribe. So first, I want to really quickly cover Wade and James's backstories to give you an insight to what their motives may have been to make Leaving Neverland.
In 2011, Wade got turned down for a job he desperately wanted, this being the lead choreographer of the Michael Jackson 1 tribute show. It was stated he was not good enough. Shortly after, Wade suffered a nervous breakdown due to, in his own words, his career beginning to crumble. It wasn't long after that he started shopping a book about the alleged abuse, but no publisher picked it up. Due to this, Robson filed a $1.5 billion civil lawsuit claim in 2013. Of course, this is not mentioned in the documentary as it's not about the money, they say. But come on, if you're asking for $1.5 billion, that is not on a level of justice. A claim of that quantity is 100% about the money. The judge found Robson to be lying constantly and stated that one of his lies was so incredible that he disregarded Robson's sworn declaration and found that no rational trio of fact could possibly believe Robson's sworn statements. As for James, his family owns a garbage disposal company called Sisu. In 2014, he joined Wade's lawsuit, suing for $1 billion. That same year, his family was sued for a total of $840,086 due to his mother conspiring to breach a business contract. Obviously, this amount is gigantic and would render the Safe Chucks bankrupt, unless they were to find a way to make money. Enter Michael Jackson. Wade and James' claim was thrown out of court, and now the pair are in serious debt to Jackson's estate. Robson owes nearly $70,000 in court costs, and Safechuck several thousand. It was only after all this, in 2018, that they began filming Leaving Neverland.
The main reason it was thrown out of court was because the judge found Wade to be lying constantly. The courts actually found a lot of emails between Wade and his mother Joy, and they were sketchy to say the least. So in one of the emails, Wade sends his mother a long list of questions, asking her about the time they spent with Michael when he was younger.
He was even asking the most basic questions.
He can't remember practically anything about the time they spent with Michael, but apparently he can remember all this alleged abuse in such great detail, which is a little bit strange. When he was asked about this by the court, he claimed that he couldn't remember sending the email.
However, he said he may have looked for it in the last 3 months.
Which is a bit of a contradiction in itself, really. In one of the emails, Wade asks his mother how long he was with Michael alone when the rest of the family went to the Grand Canyon, and she replied by saying, "I have several versions. I'll let you know if I think anything will benefit you." This to me is kind of weird because why would you have several versions of something that is meant to be factual? It's also worth noting that Joy was writing a book too. It was called A Mother's Instinct. Well, you couldn't have had that much of an instinct, love. I mean, you didn't know for 3 decades apparently, but we'll forget about that. They also found out that Wade had sent emails to himself with articles attached that were regarding the 93 allegations against Michael. Now, this is weird because it was as if he was looking for inspiration.
When asked why it says "for my attorneys" at the top of the paper, he answered, "I don't remember."
Also, when looking for these articles, he found an article regarding himself. Now, he sent this article to his mother, the whole story, and he said, "What do you think about this?" To which she replied, "Wow, none of that is true." but they used it in the documentary anyway. In notes to himself, Wade stated, "My story of abuse and its effect will make me relatable and relevant." Now, this is a really weird statement because should the motive of sharing your story of abuse be to become relevant? Surely the only thing you would want is to be heard and to maybe help other people that have gone through the same thing as you. We've made this massive leap lately in terms of people coming forward about sexual abuse and talking about it more openly, and that's all great, obviously, but it seems as though he's using it as a platform, becoming relevant is basically the same thing as saying it'll make me important, it'll make me be acknowledged. We know around this time that he'd had the breakdown about his career crumbling, and we know that he was bitter about not getting the job that he really wanted.
To me, this statement translates as, "I'll do anything to become relevant and relatable, even if it means using a false sexual abuse story to do so." Correct me if I'm wrong, but I hardly doubt that being relevant would be the priority of a sexual abuse victim. Brandy actually mentioned that Wade always talked about wanting to be relevant, so that makes this note of his look even sketchier.
Also, in notes to himself, he wrote, "It's time for me to get mine." Now, does that sound like getting justice for abuse, or does that sound like getting money? I know what I think it sounds like. He was actually questioned about this as well, and he gave his favourite answer, which was, "I can't remember." There is also an email where Wade asks his mother about the night the police came to the house to talk about allegations made about him and Michael.
He writes, "This is the first we'd heard of any allegations, right? This implies that none of it ever happened, as if someone tells you something about yourself and it comes as a surprise to even you, that means it couldn't have happened, or else you'd have already known." Wade also lied when he stated he had not sent his book to any publishers, which he had under an email titled Our Secret Project. He lied about his mum's book too, stating that he didn't recall knowing she was writing one. In the first draft of his book, Wade referred to himself as the master of deception, which is pretty ironic considering it's probably the truest thing he said in the last 6 years. Realizing how unhelpful this was to his claim, he then removed it from the book.
Okay, now I want to move on to talk about all the blatant lies in the documentary, and believe me, there's a lot of them.
Wade claims that Michael said, "You can sleep with your parents or in my room," but evidence shows that actually Wade and his sister begged Michael to sleep in his room, and Michael said, "If it's okay with your parents, then yes." Michael never invited children to his room. They always wanted to be around him and invited themselves.
I have never invited anyone into my bed ever. Children love me, I love them, they follow me, they want to be with me. But anybody can come in my bed. A child can come in my bed if they want.
I can say, sorry, I've seen this. I've seen it a lot. I've seen kids. I've seen him with children in the last year. I've seen it enough to where I can see how that can happen. Is, they don't let him go to the bathroom without running in there with them. They won't let him out of their sight. So when he jumps in the bed, I'm even out. They jump in the bed with him.
Wade says that Michael abused him hundreds of times. However, the family only met Michael about 4 times. This is stated by Joy in the 2005 trial. They visited the ranch many more times than that, but Michael was not there. The same has been said about James's family. Apparently they weren't around him all that much. I did notice when watching the documentary, there's quite a few photos of Michael at James's house in Simi Valley, but when James talks about Neverland, they mainly show photos of the rooms at Neverland, not photos of James at Neverland. Wade claims that hearing Michael's music triggers him, yet in 2011 he practically begged for a job to work as the lead choreographer for the tribute concert, and after Michael died he performed tributes to him alongside Janet. Wade's story changes constantly. He claims in the documentary that he didn't realize he had been abused until recently, but in his disposition stated he'd never forgotten what Michael did to him. Another version is that he claims he knew what Michael did was wrong, but he was scared to testify against him, as he thought it would ruin his life, even though he was 22 at the time, and no 22-year-old would really believe that. Wade states this is due to his memories evolving. However, memory experts believe that evolved memories are actually false memories, much like borrowed memories. If a parent tells you something enough times, you start to believe the memory is yours, but really it isn't. And as for the dinner that was meant to give Wade the motivation to lie for Michael at the trial, Taj has revealed that it happened after the trial took place. Both men claim romantic love for Michael, but they both grew up to be straight. I think if you're straight, you were always straight, and therefore would never have felt anything romantically for someone of the same sex. Both men claim Michael warned them off women, but Michael set Wade up with his niece Brandy, whom he dated for over 7 years. This is never even acknowledged in the documentary. Also, both men claim that Michael tossed them aside when they got older and replaced them with Macaulay Culkin and Brett Barnes, both of whom have always pledged Michael's innocence. However, Wade was still dating Brandy up until 2001, when she dumped him for cheating on her with numerous women, including Britney Spears, who was with Justin Timberlake at the time. Wade and Justin were childhood friends, so this gives you an idea of Wade's backstabbing character. Wade also attended a barbecue with Michael in 2005, and his whole family were also invited to his funeral. Michael even bought Wade's mum a massage chair the Christmas before he died, so they were still very much in contact. As for Safechuck, he is seen hanging out with Michael as an adult on the history tour. So you want us to believe that as a grown man, you were willingly hanging out with a man who you say abused you and degraded you as a child, and there you are following him around, happily holding his umbrella for him? Likewise, I find it hard to believe Michael would be this comfortable around him if he had abused him. Also, if James had been abused, it would be pretty ironic for him to be helping him on this tour, as most of the history album, and therefore the tour, was a response to the 93 allegations. The album has a very angry tone, and most of the songs blatantly refer to the Chandlers, Tom Sneddon, and the mass media. To put it bluntly, it was a big fuck you to everyone who tried to prosecute Michael. James says he was begged to testify in the 2005 trial, but he was not even allowed to, as he was considered a non-entity.
And he asked me to testify, and I said no. And he got really angry at me, and he threatened me. I'd never seen him this angry. He was more like, okay, you're an enemy now.
Safechuck, there was a declaration filed, I think sometime in 93 or 94, 95, whatever, somehow in connection with the Jordy Chandler matter. And Safechuck had signed a declaration saying that, yeah, nothing happened. Michael never did anything, blah, blah, blah. He no longer had contact with Michael. And so Safechuck, for purposes of the trial, was what we would call a non-entity. Mm-hmm. Nothing, the judge had already ruled, nothing regarding Safechuck was going to be allowed. Nothing was going to be discussed. No evidence one way or the other was going to be brought in. Safechuck, for purposes of this trial, didn't exist, plain and simple.
He also said he spent Thanksgiving with Michael at Neverland, but at the time, Michael was actually in Australia for the Bad tour. James says that Michael gave him his Thriller jacket, and at the end of the documentary, it was burnt. This is staged, however, as he actually sold it at auction in 2011. There is one other one, but this is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is just another juvenile attempt to beg for sympathy from the audience. Safechuck also claims that he went to Euro Disney in 1988, but it wasn't opened until 1992. He said Michael gave him Indiana Jones' bullwhip, but it was donated to the Institute of Archaeology in 1990. When it comes to messing up dates, his mother is just as bad. She stupidly claims that she danced with happiness when Michael died in 2009, but James didn't realize he'd been abused until 2013.
I danced when I heard that he died. I was laying in bed, the news came on, I got out of bed, and I was, oh, thank God he can't hurt any more children. Those were my thoughts, and I danced. He can't hurt any more children. I was so happy he died.
Food for thought on James's alleged mock wedding ceremony. It matches perfectly with a story in the book Michael Jackson Was My Lover, which is a fictional erotica that promotes and normalizes paedophilia. The author was sued millions by Michael and the book was banned. Now what's more likely, that this author just happened to dream up the exact same story that actually happened to someone? Or that James, or someone else with input on this documentary, took inspiration from the book? Also, James still has the ring, which doesn't prove anything whether it was bought for him by Michael or not. But he doesn't have the wedding papers he claimed they filled in, and they were never found in the raids at Neverland. I just find it a bit too coincidental that these things they claim exist would be considered proof if they had them, but they don't have them. I then discovered that practically all of James's allegations are identical to many other excerpts in the fictional book. There is just no way this can be a coincidence. Another questionable thing James says is that they used to have sex in the theatre at Neverland, and that it was dangerous, but also exciting. This statement is first of all stupid, as when people find the thought of getting caught having sex exciting, it's because they find it a turn-on. A child wouldn't find this a turn-on, as they wouldn't see sex in the same way as an adult. Therefore, they wouldn't be excited by the concept of getting caught. And secondly, James has already stated he was really scared of anyone finding out, because Michael had told him his life would be over if anyone found out. This makes this statement a blatant contradiction.
I was afraid of being caught. It was on the news 24/7. I mean, it was just being broadcast. And there was so much attention on it from the world.
So by that time, you thought of what you were doing as a bad thing, or
No.
just as a thing that you all did, but you had to keep it a secret?
I didn't think of it as good or bad. It was that old sort of wiring of, if you're caught, your life will be over.
If their story is true, why would they feel the need to lie consistently about so many things? They're even lying about small things, so why should we believe them about any of it? There is even a video of them being interviewed at Sundance, where they are asked a completely normal question by a member of the audience, and their reaction says it all, as they look at each other and smugly laugh.
And I think, a lot of what Dan's intention was, that comes across as very powerful in the film, was not making it a story about Michael or necessarily just you guys, but kind of about your shared family experiences. How it affected your parents and your siblings and, your wives and so on and so forth. Have they seen any part of the project, and what is your relationship like with them now, as a result of this, after they finally, find out your truths, how does that change? I mean, I know we got a lot of that in the film, but where does that stand now?
So another thing that struck me as being really strange was the mothers' demeanours, and I mean both mothers. When talking about past memories with their sons and Michael, all they did was smile and giggle. And I understand that you're proud that your son went on stage and danced with Michael, but knowing what you allegedly know now, wouldn't that taint all your memories? I know that if I trusted someone and loved someone, and then I found out they'd abused my son, I would not be smiling at the fact that my son danced with that man anymore. One example of this I found to be the most shocking was when Stephanie, which is James's mum, was being interviewed. And I actually looked away from the screen for a second, I can't remember why, but I heard this sudden outburst and I thought she'd burst into tears. So I looked back at the screen and I was so shocked to see that she was actually laughing. And she burst out into laughter and she was saying, James doesn't know this, but when he was younger and he used to be in Michael's room, I would be outside the door listening, and she was smiling and laughing as she was saying this. Now, again, knowing what you allegedly know now, would you be laughing? I know I wouldn't be. I would be crying at the fact that I didn't barge in there to see what was going on. And let's be honest, if you even had a little inkling that something was wrong, you would go in there. You wouldn't stay outside the door. Also, after Wade filed the lawsuit against Michael's estate, his mother was asked if she'd spoken to him about the lawsuit, to which she responded, "No, I don't consider that my business." I would consider it my business if my son had got abused. That's such a weird thing to say. I almost wonder if the mothers were told to act in this way, to act in this naive way, like, oh, you know, the lifestyle just swept us off our feet and we were so taken aback by all the glitz and the glamour that we didn't see what was going on under our noses, to make it more plausible. But in my opinion, it makes everything less plausible, because no mother would act like that. So I want to highlight how sketchy the director Dan Reed actually is. For starters, Leaving Neverland was originally 4 hours long, yet when it premiered in the UK, it was only 3 hours. Why? Because after it premiered in the US, people started researching the things that were said, and they found loads of lies. So all these lies were cut out. So that's an hour of footage, that's a quarter of the film that was cut out straight away.
The first 45 minutes of the documentary are pretty innocent, with no details of abuse. This is done deliberately to trick the viewer into thinking there was a grooming period, when in reality, there wasn't. First we hear of Wade meeting Michael at a dance competition. Then we go straight to James and hear of how James met Michael. Then we go back to Wade. This is done intentionally to make you forget that there was a 2-year gap between when Wade next met Michael. Wade claims that the first instance of abuse occurred on only the 3rd night he stopped with Michael, when he was alone with him. Now this is completely ridiculous, as a paedophile would never abuse a child this quickly. There would have to be a much longer grooming period to gain trust in the child, to ensure that the child would not freak out and tell anyone. Also, keep in mind that after that first meeting, Michael never pursued the Robsons. They moved to America and went looking for him. When we hear James' story, there is visual trickery. Dan Reed deliberately shows us James and Michael dancing all over Europe, and then goes to the alleged incident in Paris where James was abused for the first time. However, Paris is where James first joined Michael on tour. This would mean that Michael abused him as soon as he saw him, for the first time after spending months apart. This again is also very hard to believe, as it runs a high risk of the child freaking out and telling on the abuser. It is also worth noting that although the documentary claims that Michael reached out to the Safe Chucks by calling the family upon seeing the TV commercial, it was actually James that had sent Michael a letter. This is apparent due to evidence of the letter Michael sent back in response. Reed also portrays misleading representations of people, as he implies Brett Barnes was molested and is in denial. Brett even asked HBO to cut this from the film, stating he still considered Michael to be one of his dearest friends. HBO refused, and now Barnes has reportedly hired a lawyer and threatened them with a lawsuit. Reed has also made it pretty clear that he has no interest in talking to people who have good things to say about Michael, such as Macaulay Culkin, Brett Barnes, Emmanuel Lewis, Aaron Carter, and so on.
Family friend.
What happened at the house? That's what all these things
It's,
that people
that's
are concerned
what's
about.
so weird,
What did happen?
Nothing happened, I mean, nothing really. I mean, we played video games, we played it as an amusement park. Well, the thing is with that whole thing is that, they go, oh, you slept in the same bedroom as him. It's like, I don't think you understand. Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories. And it has like 3 bathrooms and this and that. So when I slept in his bedroom, yeah, but you have to understand the whole scenario. And the thing.
And what was it like watching your friend go through that?
It was, it was horrible, you know what I mean? Because, this guy is great. He's got a heart of gold. And, You know that he wouldn't do any of those things that people were talking about. Later on, of course, after he died, a few of those people came forward and said, it never happened. We didn't do anything. We was pressured by parents, by this or that, and they needed money real bad, and they figured that was the way to get at him. And there's people out in the press that actually came clean, but it's a little late. Thanks a lot. You put them through hell.
You don't think that for the interviews that they're doing, they're not getting paid? Because I've been offered 6 figures already for an interview, and I turned them all down. I told them to go fuck themselves. Like, Wade, I'm very disappointed in, because I don't understand. And then and then he's trying to tie my name into this shit, like putting like at Aaron Carter. I'm not that guy. I'm not the one. Like I might be a pop singer, but I'm also from the fucking South. And you fucking come at me on some sour shit. You're lucky I got something to lose now. Like, because I would punch you in your face. I would. And then maybe I'd ask you, hey, are you telling the truth? But I'd punch you in your face first. Because what you're doing is you're stomping on someone's grave who's there for you, taught you things, did all these kind of things. And then you guys are sitting there talking about how you were molested and all this stuff. It's hard for me to understand. How am I supposed to understand that when my own personal experience with him was gentle and beautiful and loving and embracing, and that was it?
Reed has even said he would like to interview former accusers Jordan Chandler and Gavin Arvizo. This biased, non-factual film should not even be calling itself a documentary. It is by definition propaganda. Okay, so now I want to move on to some of the arguments that some of the people who believe Wade and James have, and I wanted to address them. So I hope I don't offend anyone. Okay, so I hear a lot of the same claims when it comes to arguments in their favour, and one of the ones I hear a lot is that it's so graphic, so it must be true. Horror films are graphic. I don't go down the road and see Hannibal Lecter. I mean, just because something's graphic doesn't make it true. It just takes a little bit of imagination. That's it. Another one I hear that's really similar to this is that James and Wade's stories are too similar to those of other sexual abuse victims to not be true. Like, I don't know if everyone's common sense has just gone, but it's very easy to search something on the internet, to search the patterns of paedophilia, the patterns of sexual abuse, and to become familiar with them and to portray them. It's called acting. The graphic nature of the documentary is done deliberately to gauge a certain response from the audience, just like the moody lighting, just like the sad, haunting music, it's all cinematography. It's made to make you feel a certain way. Why don't we believe the FBI, who had him under surveillance for 10 years and found nothing, or the 70 officers that searched his ranch unexpectedly on 2 occasions and found nothing, or the 17 laptops that were checked and again they found nothing? Why don't we believe the courts that proved him innocent years ago? Oh, let's chuck all that out the fucking window. That doesn't matter now. No, because we have the word of 2 men, the inconsistent word of 2 men. Another thing people find dodgy is the alarm system he had outside his bedroom. So basically, whenever anyone would approach the bedroom door, a ding, like a bell, would go off, basically. But I don't find this strange at all. I mean, you've got to keep in mind that he was the most famous man in the world, literally. And I know that he was really paranoid as well about stalkers and things like that. Like, he talked about it on an interview with Barbara Walters, and Paris has talked about it. Like, he used to tell her that he was scared someone was out to get him. And the thing is, like, if you think about it, us normal people, we have alarm systems on our houses in case someone breaks in. So if you had a huge house and you were the most famous person in the world, wouldn't you have an alarm system outside your bedroom as well? I mean, like, the bedroom was 2 stories. That was like a mini house itself. So yeah, I really don't find that strange at all. Michael only acted childlike so he could hang around with children. Anyone who knows Michael has seen enough videos to know that he's childlike all the time. Like, all the time. There's an abundance of videos where he's always acting like a child, whether he's with children or with adults.
That's yours.
Santa King?
Santa from Bel Air.
Santa from Bel Air. Can I open it?
Sure.
Love it. Silver Soaker. Now I know how to wake up Elizabeth tomorrow. How? Awful feeling.
Oh my God.
You better lock your door.
A shooting gallery.
I mean, I'm not going to marry someone for a recording career, just to clear that up as well.
What? Stop. I'm going to let the two...
Okay. I feel like James Bond now.
Yes.
My name is Michael Jackson.
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 Pretty boring here on the stage between selves.
Thank you.
I can prove it. It ends with Michael going,
thank you.
See, in my way, kind of what the real world is like, even though it wasn't the real thing.
Yeah, still quick. He's like, I gotta buy that.
Michael Bay.
Oh, no. My first shopping experience in 30 years.
Just remember, Michael Jackson ice cream.
Why are you laughing?
Okay, go on.
What? What? What have I done? Come on, tell me, what have I done?
No, I like your accent. I was laughing
You like my
how you
accent?
said, I'm going to ask you. You said, I'm going to ask you. I like it.
Can you do an English accent?
A bit.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet a nice, beautiful interview.
I seriously believe that a personality that gentle and demure and humble can't be faked, at least not 24/7, you know? And I think the fact that he was so pure was what made people question him, you know, because it's really rare for adults to be like that, to be so naive. And so people thought, well, there must be an ulterior motive behind it. But I really don't believe there was.
Hi. This is my llama, Louie. And he's a really charming, sweet animal. He eats alfalfa. They're originally from South America. And they originally come from the mountains in Peru, the Indians. And they're from the breed of the alpaca, as well as the camel. And Louie, he was in the circus. I bought him from a lady who was a circus performer. And what he would do, he would give kids rides, 60 pounds or under. And that's what he would do all day, and do tricks. And he's a charming, sweet animal. Say hi, Louie. Let him see your beautiful ears. Come on, Louie.
Face in a cloud, soaring up so high. Watch me now, watch me now. I'm Japan. I can do anything. So high.
Okay. Yes. I'm so embarrassed. I nailed her toe. Oh. Don't, Turkle, you're making me feel bad. It's bad enough as it is. Giving away all my beauty secrets. No, there are no secrets.
Oh, can I give you the... Do I have stories to tell?
One last thing I think is worth mentioning is if Michael were really a paedophile, why would he be so open about his relationships with children? And I don't mean in general, I mean when he's asked on interviews, you know, have you shared the bedroom with the children or even the bed? He's so open about it. Now, if a real paedophile were asked this, they'd probably get defensive and say like, oh no, I didn't, because they'd see that as incriminating. But because Michael genuinely thinks, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, because he wasn't, he's so open about it.
I just wonder, is it over? You're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think this is really the key thing people want to know, that there are not going to be more of these sleepovers in which people have to wonder.
Nobody wonders when kids sleep over at my house.
But
Nobody
are they
wonders.
over? Are you going to watch out for it now?
Watch out for
just
what?
for the sake of the children and for
No,
everything
because
you've been through?
it's all moral and it's all pure. I don't even think that way. It's not what's in my heart.
So you'll
I would
do it
never,
again?
ever. Do what again?
I mean, you'll have a child sleeping
Of course.
over.
If they want.
Yes.
It's on the level of purity and love and just innocence, complete innocence. If you're talking about sex, then that's a nut. That's not me. Go to the guy down the street because it's not Michael Jackson. It's not what I'm interested in.
Okay.
I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I gave him the bed because he has a brother named Star. So him and Star took the bed, and I'm on the floor in the sleeping bag.
Did you ever sleep in the bed with them?
No. But I have slept in the bed with many children. I sleep in the bed with all of them. When Macaulay Culkin were little, Kieran Culkin would sleep on this side, Macaulay Culkin's on this side, his sister's in there. We're all just jamming the bed. And we wake up like dawn and go in a hot air balloon. You know, we have the footage. I have all that footage.
But is that right?
And the thing is with Michael is that he's not very good at explaining himself, and he never really has been, because he's not a very social person. I mean, you're talking about someone who's been sheltered and sheltering himself also for the last like 30 years, or and so he's not very good at communicating to people and not very good at conveying what he's actually trying to say to you. And so when he says something like that, people, he doesn't quite understand why people react the way that they do.
Okay, so I'm going to end the video here. If you've made it all the way to the end, thank you so much, and I hope that if you had any doubts about Michael, you don't anymore, because that means I did my job properly. So yeah, if you liked the video, please do give me a like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!